Hi everybody, welcome back for another video at Connerty Meadows Farm. For those of you that don't know, I'm Ricky, and today we are going for a walk through the woods. It is April, mid-April in Ontario, Canada, and we are going on a hunt for ramps. If you don't know what ramps are, you may have heard them referred to as wild leeks or wild garlic, and they are delicious. Now, back in pioneer times, when the ramps came up, they would have all been happy to eat them and see them because it would have been the first fresh food that they've had all winter long. It is packed with minerals and nutrients, and so many times the settlers would call it a tonic because it would give them that first boost of green after a winter of not green. So let's talk about where we would find ramps. I am walking up what we call our Pasture Paradise Trail, and I just came from the section of the trail that we call the Magical Forest. Now, ramps do grow in a forest, but they're kind of particular about what kind of forest they grow in. This particular part of our forest is very much full of cedars. It's not the kind of forest they want to grow in. They like hardwood forest areas. So we are taking a wee walk to a sugar bush. We're not quite yet in the full sugar bush. We've just come from the cedar forest. We do have a few maples here, and I want to show you what's on the ground here. For those of you that don't know about foraging, this particular plant could be very easily confused with what a ramp is. See this particular plant? It would be very easy to confuse this one with ramps. As you can see though, these ones have a tinge of red on them. They're not fully green leaves. And they don't smell like onions or garlic, and that is one good indication. These are trout lilies. They are edible, but they're kind of bitter. Okay, so even though we're foraging, I feel that I need to make a full disclaimer here. If you do not know what you're looking for, please go with someone that does. Don't just randomly try plants. There are ramp lookalikes out there that are poisonous and can make you very sick. So please know your plants, know what you're doing before you start digging stuff out of the ground. All right, let's get to it. So when do I start looking for ramps? Well, where we are in Canada, Ontario, I start looking for ramps after maple syrup season is done and the maple trees have broke their bud. That's the time that they start to come out here. Now, ramps have a very short season. So as soon as the leaves are in fully open mode, the ramps will be gone. So it's a very short period of time that you have to find them. Their leaves will die back. They will grow a flower, and then that flower will stay through the season. And then in about September, the flowers will turn into seeds. So if you know what you're looking for, you can actually grab some of those seeds and sprinkle them around where you want them, in the right environment, of course. Now again, keep in mind, from seed, that seed could take 6 to 18 months to germinate. And then from seed, you're looking at least 4 to 7 years before they're big enough to harvest, which is why it is really, really important to do this in a sustainable way. Okay, so we're back in the sugar bush, and I'm just showing you this small little section in here. You can see there's a lot of hardwood trees in here. The one with the orange there is actually a maple tree. But this would be the perfect environment for ramps to grow in. So some clues to look for. First of all, if you have some trout lilies and you have some trilliums growing, this is the environment that ramps want to live in. You can see all those are all trilliums. Unfortunately, in this particular section, there isn't any. But it's okay that there are no ramps here right now, because I was out foraging the other day and I actually got some ramps, and I'm going to transfer some in here. Once they're planted in here, it will be years, literally, before I will be able to harvest the bulbs from these. Okay, so when I was out foraging the other day, I made sure that I had brought some of these ramps back with the tiny little roots attached. Now, in order to transplant ramps, you need a sugar bush, hardwood. You're going to want somewhere that has trilliums. You're also going to want somewhere that has lots of litter and that will still get some sun. Now, we're going to dig down a little bit here. And we're just going to put our spade in, and because these guys are really tiny, I'm actually just going to move the soil to the side, and I'm going to pop these guys in the ground in a little clump. Safety in numbers almost. And then I'm going to squish the ground back together. And we're going to cover it with leaf matter. It's going to rain tomorrow, so this is actually going to get rained in, so we don't need to worry about it drying up at all. All right, let's plant some more. Okay, so we're going to clear a little patch on the ground. Just going to move the soil a little bit. And I'll reach into my little basket here. I have a few more small ones. I purposely kept small ones for transplanting, because then I know not to touch this area for a number of years. So you can see tiny little roots. Pop those guys in, cover our ground up, and it's very important to put the leaves back around it because we want them to stay moist. They need moist environment. Here's another batch here. Now, I don't have any more ramps left with leaves. One of the other ways of harvesting ramps is you can harvest them with the roots, but sustainably. Then I can take the roots that I cut off of the ramps that I had, and I can actually replant all of these roots in the ground. And each of these roots will grow another ramp. These ones will cover up fully and put our leaf litter on. So that's how to replant them. Now, let's go harvest. Now you'll see, as we're walking through the bush, there's all these little green patches here. I'm just swinging around over there. So these are all my wild leeks, or ramps. All right, so let's talk about a few different ways that we can harvest these. One of the easiest ways, that is the least invasive, is to actually snip some leaves. In a patch this size, and it's funny, as they come up through the ground, sometimes you'll see that they're like leaves stuck on them. Okay, so we got a little patch here. These are very, very small ramps. This is a fairly young patch, and hopefully in a few years, the ones I've planted, it'll look like this. So we have some with single leaves, and then we have some with double leaves here. If we want to harvest these, I'm just going to harvest one leaf off of the two-leafed ones. So here's another one with two leaves. I'm just going to harvest one leaf. Now this is actually one of the fastest ways to harvest ramps, and it's the least invasive. So there, I have taken this entire patch I have harvested 1 leaf off of any 2-leaf plants, and that's it. This patch is done. I'm not going to touch it anymore. So here we have another batch. Now, you may want the bottom parts. So you actually are, oh, look, a trillium. So I'm going to have to be very, very careful around that. I don't want to disturb it. So these guys are down in the ground pretty good. I'm going to have to carefully dig that up. There's with the root. So when I get home, we're gonna peel this back and cut right at the root level here. We're gonna cut this and we're gonna put this back in the ground. That's another way that you can harvest the ramps. I'm actually gonna stick this guy back in the ground because I've actually harvested quite a few. The other way that you can harvest ramps is to bring a knife, which I had and somewhere in the planting of the forest. I've lost it. So I'm gonna have to retrace my steps a little later. You're gonna go down in the plant as far as you can get down, and you're just gonna cut, and I'm just gonna use my nail. And then you actually have some of the bulb. So this is also a very sustainable way of harvesting the ramp. Now, you always have to make sure if you've uncovered any of the rootstock, tuck it back in and cover it back up with leaves. And that is how you can sustainably harvest ramps for years to come without hurting your batch. It's very important in sustainable harvesting to make sure that you don't take more than 15% of what is there. Ideally, you'd only take 5 or 10%. If you were taking them by the roots, don't take more than 5 or 10% of them. So the big thing to remember with sustainable harvesting is that you don't want to take so that they can't rejuvenate themselves. Now, lots of people I know will take by the root and they'll say, oh, it's fine, there's lots of roots, they're gonna put off seeds and it'll be fine. Now, I only have a small little batch in this woods and I'm not comfortable with that. I will only take a small percentage, 5 to 10% of what's here, and I'm doing it in a sustainable way. So I'm either leaving the roots in the ground, I'm taking the leaves, or if I am taking them up by the roots, I'm actually taking the roots and moving them to another location so that none of it is being over harvested. So in here, you'll see, I have another small little batch. I don't have a lot in my woods, so in order for me to enjoy this, I am going to practice being careful with how I harvest. Now, if you've never tried these raw, they taste delicious. Like, I could eat these all day. They kind of have they're like a garlicky onion flavor, but they're not really either. Like, they definitely have their own flavor. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm no foraging expert. I have just learned through foraging for years. My grandfather was a great forager. My mom foraged. And so these are some things that I've learned through the years. Having farms and learning to shepherd the land is very important to me. So that's why I know all of these things. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. I'm glad you came along for the journey. I hope you learned something. If you did or you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Till next time, see ya.
Okay, I have to add this on. I was doing my foraging and doing the video, as you guys know, and I was like, I lost my scissors! So I retraced all my steps, which in a forest is like almost impossible. But look what I found. Do you know how almost impossible it would be to find this? This is crazy, and I'm seriously happy. Yay!